Welcome to Radio Today broadcasting in Johannesburg on 1485 AM and nationally on DSTV Audio Channel 869.
Conversations with Niki is brought to you by studyapps.co.za, South Africa's leading education app for tablets. Welcome to yet another interesting conversation. My name is Niki Seberini and you're listening to Conversations with Niki. It's wonderful to be with you. Thanks for tuning in. So Conversations with Niki really is about having discussions with people like you and me, and some people who've done extraordinary things, people who have experienced wonderful things, challenging things, and how people have grown and really changed from these experiences. Now, if you have missed any of the conversations along the way, please don't worry, because we have podcast all the shows. In fact, all the shows on Conversations with Niki are podcast, and it's very simple. You just need to visit my website, which is www.conversationswithniki, which is one word, .co.za. And Niki is spelled Niki. And all the podcasts are on that website. So just again, if you did miss one, you can always take a listen to the podcast. Now, today I have a very interesting lady who's going to be joining me. We talk about fascinating and interesting stories. Well, her story we followed for a long period of time on the news, really. The story broke in 2010, and for 20 months we followed very closely the story of Debbie Calitz and Bruno Pelletsari, who were kidnapped by a bunch of Somali pirates. And they were, after 20 months, eventually set free. And Debbie then wrote a book, 20 Months in Hostage Hell. And a lot has happened to Debbie during the time that she has returned back to normal civilization. I suppose we can question what normal is. And we really are delighted that Debbie has taken some time out to share her story and her experiences. So I'd like to welcome Debbie onto the show. Debbie, hi, and welcome.
Hi, Niki. Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining the show. I did chat to you a few months ago about your book, 20 Months in Hostage Hell. And today we're going to be talking about it again, but we're going to be going a little bit deeper into those experiences and how you have processed it now a good few months after that. I'd also like to invite into the conversation Pam Zeman, who's a psychologist. And Pam is going to be very much a part of the discussion that we're having today. So Pam, hi, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi Niki, thank you for having me.
So Pam, you have read the book.
I have read the book, yes, I read it over the weekend.
Okay. Did you know much about Debbie's story beforehand?
I knew a little bit from the media, but I must say I couldn't actually stop reading the book. I read it in about 2 hours. I was absolutely drawn to it and fascinated by the story, by her reaction, by her relationship with Bruno.
It's compelling reading.
Compelling, absolutely compelling.
Okay, so what we are going to do is, I think, Debbie, let's just start off for those of our listeners who don't really know much. Perhaps we can go back to October 2010 when you and Bruno were on this yacht exploring on your way to, well, actually back to South Africa when your world was turned upside down.
Yes, that's right.
Perhaps you can share that with us, Debbie.
Well, it felt like a dream. It didn't really feel like it was real because I just finished my shift and it was Peter's turn and I was looking for whales. And I saw these white, like big waves in the sea, and I thought they were whales crashing their tails because it was mating season and that's how they mate. I mean, they crash their tails into the sea. But they were coming too quickly, and when I showed Peter, he said, no, they're pirates. He just had enough time to go and call one mayday call, and the pirates were already there, getting on the boat.
And when he used the word pirates, I mean, what did that mean to you?
It just didn't seem real. It felt like it was a dream. Everything was in slow motion while they were boarding the yacht, and they all had guns. But they were very much afraid, more afraid than what we were. It happened so quick, too quick for me to be afraid at that moment.
And that's when your this terrible nightmare began. And I use the word nightmare, but actually you in hindsight have seen it as a life-changing event and something that actually was positive in your life.
Oh, definitely. I came out of there a much better person and stronger person than when I went in there.
I'm gonna bring you in, Pam, and I'm gonna let's talk about life and let's talk about generally experiences. I mean, the one thing we know in this lifetime is we are going to be challenged, whichever way or however we are going to be challenged. Sure. And people talk about the fight, the inner strength that we have, how you come out of it the other side, because we can't really avoid these challenges. Yeah. And I think that the interesting question is what equips us for challenges. You've just heard what Debbie said. She feels like she came out of it stronger from a situation like this.
Sure, absolutely. I'm absolutely amazed by it because this was a real trauma. It was a traumatic event, and not only a single trauma. It was a trauma that went on for many, many, many months, and which in many cases would lead to something called not only post-traumatic stress disorder, but complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Because Debbie and Bruno were captive, they were subject to totalitarian control. Absolute control 24 hours a day for 20 months. And very often the symptoms that you have after that are really, really severe. There's depression, anxiety, disconnection, disempowerment, withdrawal from life, from people. And it takes a lot of work to overcome that and to actually be reintegrated into normal life. So, Debbie, I'm so flabbergasted and so amazed at how you've come out the other side, and how not only have you failed to be adversely affected, but you've actually come out stronger.
But Pam, you know why I think that is?
Yes.
Because each and every time I had to face something, whether it was degradation or humility or anything like that, I came to terms with it there and then.
Mm.
So, and one of my biggest things was to let go. But once I let go, it just started, I got a strength from somewhere. And I wouldn't allow myself to go deep into those depths of despair. I just wouldn't. And I wouldn't allow myself to give up. Never.
Yeah, I saw that in the book. I mean, as you say, almost a total acceptance. This is what's happening. I'm not going to fight against it.
No.
But also the way you were able to self-soothe. You were able to self-soothe a lot. And I wonder where you learned that from.
Probably my life. I had a very difficult life, my whole life.
Yeah.
And before I met Bruno, I was actually wandering for many years, homeless, not on the streets,
yes,
working at different places, game farms, all over, but for accommodation and food, never for money. And I was in a different type of mindset completely. So it was just a continuation of my previous life.
So you learned how to tolerate pain and handle adversity.
Yes, but I also taught myself while I was there, because of what had happened to me before, I was able to work things through. And when you're in a situation like that, all you've got is your mind and your heart, of course.
Yeah.
And I realized then that the heart is more important than the mind. The mind changes all the time, but the heart controls it.
Debbie, what I found quite interesting in the book was the relationship, or your need to build relationships with these pirates. And when I say pirates, it's because they seem to be swapping all the time. You had a group who first captured you, and you were transported all the time, and some of them were very kind to you, and some of them treated you brutally. Why was that so important?
Well, in the beginning it wasn't. The pirates were only while we were on the ship. And then as soon as we left the ship, we traveled that whole night, and they sold us to our wardens, you can say. They're not pirates.
Okay.
They're run by a Muslim group of people. Because all the Muslims that were higher were light-skinned, and we knew they were Muslims. They weren't Somali black people.
Mm-hmm.
Although the Somalis are more Arab than black. They're different. And all of them are people, just like us. And I knew that what I was trying to do was, it's part of survival. If I could make friends with them And then if there was a panic situation, I could maybe befriend the one that I'd made friends with and cause an argument between them, which would maybe give us time to escape or something. I was just always trying to think ahead of survival.
And I don't know if, Niki, the common reactions to trauma when you're first faced with a traumatic event is fight, flight, freeze, and tend and befriend. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Debbie. That's what you did to survive. You befriended them. That they actually, these militia men became your friends. And I don't know if you remember the story with Patty Hearst. She was...
yes, of course.
Yes,
many years ago.
In the 60s.
Yes.
She was captured and she was taken hostage, and an amount of money, a huge amount of money was paid for her return. But she was never recovered. And then months later, she was found robbing a bank with her captors, with the people who'd actually taken her hostage.
Yeah.
And at the trial, she said the only way that she could survive was to befriend them, because these people have so much power over you. Literally, your life, how many times you can go to the toilet, your food, everything is in their hands. Yeah,
I think of, living in South Africa, we're challenged on a daily basis, and crime and violence is a part of our ordinary existence. And just to digress really for a moment, people who have been in a traumatic situation where maybe they've had home invaders come in and burgle, and they pull out a gun. You talk to people about their reactions, and you spoke about the fight flight. So there are people who will scream. And usually it'll end up badly, and you have those people who just try and calm down the situation and befriend, just try and build some type of a relationship to see if they can turn it. Is it also a way of controlling it, Pam? Was this Debbie's way of being able to have some kind of control over the situation?
I think it was A, control, and B, as she says, survival. It was just, and it's because I think, Debbie, from what I can understand, you're a people person and relationships are important to you.
Yeah.
This was your way of surviving. It wasn't fight, it wasn't flight, it wasn't freeze, but it was tend and befriend.
And Bruno and me were total opposites. I needed to keep on looking at my blindfold, seeing what was going on, looking through the keyhole, under the door, wherever possible. Yes. That helped me not to be afraid. But Bruno, on the other hand, he faced his fear by sleeping more and not allowing it to affect him in that way. So he
removed himself.
Total different experiences in the same place.
How important was it for you that he was with you all the time?
How important?
Yes.
I was so lucky. We were so lucky to have each other.
Very lucky. Yeah.
Alone, it would have been terrible.
Yeah. So you got solace from each other.
Yes. There was another person with us. He was a French secret agent. We weren't allowed to speak about him. I wanted to write about him in my book, but I couldn't. But he's dead now. They did a rescue attempt a year later, and a few months back he was killed, unfortunately. But he was alone all the time in solitary confinement in a room next to us,
sure,
or opposite us, wherever we moved.
Did you meet him?
Yes, I did. They moved us together the one time. We had an accident in the car. And we had to stop and wait for the doctor to come into the desert to come and see to him. And he cut his head all over. And the doctor came. And then I think it was 2 months after that, we traveled again. And I spoke to him for the first time.
That's interesting. As you say, I mean, this isn't in the book. This is complete news to us.
Yes, I wasn't allowed to talk about it. But now that he's dead, I can.
You can. How long had he been held captive before you arrived?
Oh, a long time. 3 years.
Oh, no.
Sure. He was there altogether about 4 or 5 years, but the strongest, bravest person I've ever met.
And Debbie, was your belief that you were going to be saved, that you were going to get out alive?
Oh, yes. I never once doubted that. I just thought about my children. That was the one thing I wanted more than anything. And not just that. When you're in a situation like that, so many things like remorse goes through your mind, and you want to just, it's like having another chance again to say sorry to the people that you've harmed in your life and to start again. Have a whole new clean slate and start again.
So that gave you...
couldn't wait to look forward to that. That's what I was doing.
And that's part of when you ask about what allows people to carry on. That's part of it, a purpose, a reason.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Now, Debbie, I mean, you went through some really brutal times. Your dignity was stripped really regularly. You were fed sometimes well, sometimes you weren't fed at all. When it comes to being in the dark for hours on end, your access to water, absolutely, and sanitation was also controlled.
Yeah.
And you talk about having Bruno with you as a great comfort and a solace. But in terms of your dignity and in terms of you as a woman and your privacy, and what was that like for you, that being slowly stripped away?
Oh, that was the worst in the beginning, because I'm very shy, especially when it comes to going to the toilet in front of someone. I hated that. And you know that it affected me so much psychologically that my stomach stopped working. It just wouldn't work. I got so constipated, and it just wouldn't happen. Until again, something I had to let go of again. And I just had to do it in front of Bruno. And after that, when I'd faced my fear, everything was okay.
And being exposed to these wardens, you call them, sometimes they would give you privacy and sometimes you had no privacy at all.
I know, but it's just something you have to go through, and if it's something you have to do, let it happen. It'll be over soon, and it won't last forever. Nothing ever lasts forever. It will eventually be over. I kept telling myself that.
And we have times when we feel strong, but then we have times when it's very dark, and we can fall into that deep dark hole very, very easily. You were mentioning to Pam a little bit earlier the reason, the purpose being your family. But were you having those fluctuations of moods? Did you have to sometimes speak quite harshly to yourself to bring yourself back up?
Oh yes, what I had to do was do the thing I didn't want to do. Like, if I was lying down in bed and I'd just woken up and I was feeling depressed, I would say, okay, get up and walk. Do something and just change, because that's the one thing that you can change is your physical being, even if you can't change your mindset at the time. So I got up and I started walking and I started counting my steps and started thinking, day by day in every way, I'm getting stronger and stronger. And I would just do that, and eventually it would be like that. And I would wake, and I'd get into a good mood, and everything would be fine again. And then I'd think, okay, now I know how to get out of that. I'm going to do that next time to get out of that darkness and gloom, because I can't go there. It's not going to serve me any purpose at all.
I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm for a moment putting myself in that situation and just wondering if I would have the strength to do that.
It's not an easy thing to do, but you will find the strength. You will, you do. You find out things about yourself that you don't even know you had inside of you until you're in a situation like that and you have to face it.
Debbie, you really tapped into your own resources in the most phenomenal way. And what you're saying is really very much what Viktor Frankl, the concentration camp survivor, says. He says you focus on what you can control.
Yes.
And I think that's exactly what you did. You couldn't control the fact that you weren't allowed outside and that the amount of food you were going to have or when you could use the bathroom, but you could control what your thoughts were. You could control getting out of bed. Yes. You could control how much you would walk. And I think that's a phenomenal coping mechanism which you just seem to do on your own.
Yeah. I'm just a strong person, I think.
Well, you talk about the difficult times beforehand and saying that those difficult times almost prepared you for this, Debbie, in some way.
I think so. My whole life has prepared me for actually what I'll be doing now in the future. Only now I'm finding out my purpose.
Oh, wow.
A year later, after I've been incarcerated there. And my whole life leading up until that. But I'm not going to speak about that now. No,
we'll come back to it. In fact, we're going to a part of the book that I don't know how difficult it was for you to write it. I'm not sure how you've processed it, and I'm certainly not sure how you've moved forward from that. But in a moment we're going to be talking about the rape, because you were raped while you were there. And when I last spoke to you, we didn't really dwell, we didn't talk much about it, and I think it's so relevant to have the discussion. We live in South Africa where there's so much sexual violence, and there's so much happening against women, not only in South Africa but around the world, and I just think it's so important. But if you have just tuned in, well, it's a very interesting show that you've tuned into. I have Debbie Calitz on the line, and Debbie is the South African woman who was captured with her boyfriend Bruno Pellizzari in 2010, and she was held hostage for 20 months by Somali pirates. Well, she was captured by pirates and then held captive and eventually rescued 20 months later. And Debbie has written a book, and this book is called 20 Months in Hostage Hell. And she takes you on this journey, and it really is compelling reading, just to see this whole process and how Debbie was able to cope with it. I also have Pam Zeman in the studio, who is a psychologist. She's very much a part of this conversation, and we're looking at different aspects of Debbie's experience and just trying to analyze and see how Debbie was able to cope with it, and perhaps look at those kind of skills and see how we can apply them in our everyday life and everyday situation, whatever is happening as individuals. If you have had to move away, if you haven't been able to listen to the entire show, as I've said, all the shows are podcast, so please do feel free to go to the website www.conversationswithniki.co.za. It's one word, and Niki is spelled Niki. You can also follow me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is @Seberini. Now, studies have shown that students retain 50% more of the information they've learned if they take practice tests while learning. Study Apps provides all the practice tests any student could ever ask for in an interactive and stimulating way. Study smarter, not harder, with studyapps.co.za. And of course, Conversations with Niki is brought to you by studyapps.co.za. So Pam, Debbie, let's continue. Debbie, I spoke a little bit earlier about you really having absolutely no privacy, that you were stripped of any dignity during that time. I think you came across another female once, but otherwise it was just a male environment, wasn't it?
Yes. I even had to, in the beginning, go to the toilet in front of them. That was the worst. Whenever we traveled and I needed a wee, we had to stop the car, and they had to stand there watching me while I was blindfolded in front of them. It was terrible.
Pam, what do you lose? You know, we talk about the dignity and we're talking about survival, but do you lose something in a process like that?
I think that it's temporary, but at that time you lose respect for yourself, probably. It's this shame, and which I think is probably one of the worst human emotions, real shame. I don't know if that's what you felt, Debbie.
Yeah, very embarrassed.
Yeah, and I think it's even more than embarrassed. It's shame.
Yeah, the one time we stopped the car, they wanted me to wee in a bucket in the car. There was about 4 of them, and Bruno and me, and I said, I won't. I refuse to do it. I won't. I need to go outside. And I wouldn't. I carried on, and even if they hit me, they threatened. I don't care. I had to go outside.
So dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And I just think, did you have a continual feeling of fear? Were you afraid all the time, or were there times when you were able to calm yourself?
No, the worst times were when we moved. That was very stressful because we were never told anything. So every time we moved, we weren't sure if it was to our death or whether we were going to be freed or just move to a different place.
Complete uncertainty.
Yeah.
So being in this environment with these men and having to go to the toilet in front of them, did you feel threatened? Did you feel that they were going to cross the barrier and cross the line and perhaps assault you sexually?
Not then, no. But while
you never felt threatened in that. You never felt threatened in that way in the beginning, Debbie.
No, not in the beginning. I wasn't sure. Actually, I was expecting anything. And I was just prepared for anything. But in the end, when I was raped, that was the last thing that I thought would happen. because it had been such a long time and they hadn't done that to me. Okay, they had sexually harassed me and messed around with me, but they didn't rape me then.
Perhaps you can tell us what happened.
Well, you know, it's going to sound strange, but the guy, I don't think he really wanted to rape me, the one that raped me, because he could have hurt me so much more than what he did. He did hurt me, yes, and he was also brought in from the outside. He wasn't part of the group that was looking after us. And he had to work himself up by hitting me and kicking me and pinching me. And I wasn't allowed to speak, not allowed to say a word. Whenever we were hit, we were never allowed to speak, or we'd get hit even worse. I thought, and Bruno and me thought, well, it's getting time now. Maybe they've got the money together, and they're going to beat us up before we go to teach everyone a lesson. And that's what I thought he was going to do, until he started pulling my pants off, because they gave me a pair of their shorts a little time before that, and he was pulling them off. And I tried to stop him, but I couldn't. And I thought, well, at that time I thought, now, what am I going to do? I'm going to try and fight him. I can't talk to him. I'm not allowed to speak, so I can't convince him in any other way. And as soon as I tried fighting him, he started strangling me. So I just let go a bit, let him pull my pants off, and when he tried to force open my legs again, I tried to fight him again, and he started strangling me even more. So I thought, okay, what's going to happen now? You've got two choices. You can either be really hurt, maybe die, or let him get it over with as quick as possible and leave you alone. So I thought that was the best option. So I just relaxed, closed my eyes tight, even though I was blindfolded, and I waited for him to finish. And you see, because when he first started, he wasn't even hard. That's why I thought it's not a sexual thing. It's a dominance, control, that type of emotion that he was trying to fulfill.
I mean, in warfare, I was reading up on it. They use it for psychological warfare. They use rape for psychological warfare. I mean, Pam, bringing you in here, and based on what Debbie has said, I mean, what do you say about this?
Well, you know, generally speaking, rape is one of the worst traumas that someone can suffer, and the research shows that out of all the traumas, you're most likely to develop PTSD after a rape. Because it's got post-traumatic stress disorder.
Very degrading. Very
degrading, and I think that and so generally they start off and they say, if you compare a natural disaster to a human disaster, a victim will be more likely to develop PTSD if there's been a human perpetrator. It's just that kind of the injustice of us and the belief that human beings can do that to one another, and I think that's what's behind it. And of the human crimes, rape is the worst one. But I think that in Debbie's context, it was slightly different. And I don't know if you'd agree with me, Debbie. The context was so completely different. This wasn't a sexual crime, but obviously it was a sexual abuse. But it was in the context of everything else that happened to you. And from reading your book, it didn't feel like, to me, I mean, I may be wrong, but it didn't feel like that it was the worst thing. It was just one of the things that you had to endure, but you were so able to cognitively all the time use your thoughts, use your mind, and act in service of that higher purpose of being released. But you can tell me, is that how it was for you? Was it the very worst thing, or was it just one of the things that you had to endure?
Well, I thought to myself, what is the worst thing that can happen? I can die. I've already faced that right in the beginning. I had to face my fear then, and I overcame it. So that's the worst thing that can happen to me. So now, what else can really affect me? Nothing, you see.
So the rape, what was the rape? I mean, in terms of everything else that was happening, where would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? Was it the worst thing that happened to you, or was it just...
I think I was more scared with the rape, funny enough, than when we were first threatened with death.
Right.
With the death threat, it was very quick. With the rape thing, it was a balls up, and I didn't know if he was going to kill me afterwards. I thought he might have done that or cut me inside with a knife or something.
Sure.
I wasn't sure. But I also felt sorry for him. And when I had those feelings, and I forgot completely about myself, and I tried to put myself in his shoes and see what would he do? What does he have to do? Because it wasn't a sexual thing, so I know it was an order. He was ordered or something. And when I did that and I changed from where I was into where he was, I lost my fear. And I was able to just go through it until it was finished. But afterwards, I was scared to move for a whole hour, because when he was finished, he pushed me down, he rubbed my face in the ground there, and he threw another blanket over my face. And I just lay there. I was too scared to move. The only time I was really, really scared, because I thought they might still kill me. And they left me there for about an hour, and then I knew I was going to survive. And I was okay, and I sat up. And it was over.
I think to put yourself in your perpetrator's shoes is something that, I mean, if we could live in a world when we could put ourselves in another person's shoes all the time, we'd see the world so differently. I just admire that in you. I really, really do, Debbie.
I do. I admire that. That's real empathy. To have empathy.
But I think
My
it's
goodness.
an easy thing for a person to do, because
Oh,
it
I don't
actually
know.
helps you. It helps you as a person, because you forget about yourself and your fears. And once you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, it just seems so much easier.
Now, what happened when you returned to Bruno? Did Bruno know that you had been raped?
I think he had an idea, and I thought that Bruno was never going to touch me again, that he thought I was dirty, and, well, he did after a while. But in the beginning, he said to me, no, he loves me, and it's not my fault, because I thought he would blame me, and that he would say it was all my fault, because I couldn't stop them. But he didn't in the beginning. It was only after that it subconsciously must have got to him, and he didn't want to come near me. But not that I wanted anybody at the time either, because we didn't want to have sex in a dirty place like that, and it was the last thing that we even thought about there.
But I can imagine very difficult for him not to be able to protect you or help you in a situation like that, which would make him angry, really.
Yeah, but it hurt me because he rejected me after. No, not in the beginning.
In the beginning, it was.
I understood it. So it was okay.
In the beginning, it was just all about survival.
Yeah.
Are you still together?
No.
No.
No, we're not.
Are you in touch, Debbie?
Well, yes, we are. Something happens when I left Somalia, and I think that is the worst thing, believe it or not, of the whole lot. You see, I haven't gone public with this. I'll just mention one thing about it, because it hurt me so badly. When we came back from Somalia, a few months later, Vera had told me that she lied about the trust account, and that instead of it being in my brother's name as well, she just took it in her and her sister's names, and I knew she was hiding something. So I asked her when I came back if I could see the bank statements, because I wanted to thank everybody. And she refused to give it to me, and she started swearing at me and shouting at me and telling me if she had the power, she would send me back to Somalia where I belong, because I'm an ungrateful bitch, and she was swearing. And Bruno went next to her and said the same things to me. He turned on me after we came back from Somalia. And I couldn't understand it. We had been together for 24 hours, all the time, and he turned on me. And we had to be together for the public, and we still had to go to France, we still had to go to the Netherlands, I still had to write my book. I didn't have time to, I don't know, it just hurt me. That made me think there is nobody in this world that I can trust except my parents. I mean my children. That's all. And that's why Bruno and me are not together now.
Debbie, so the money, because Bruno's sister worked very hard, I mean, tirelessly, to get money together to pay for the ransom. I remember that.
Just her. It was everybody, and she had help behind the scenes, very much help.
How much money was raised?
Well, according to Vera, in the beginning, while we were in Somalia, it was $300,000, which is about 2.1 million rand.
Mm-hmm.
But then she told me that she lied about that too. And she'd also hidden money, the cash donations, in her piano. I know I'm probably going to get into trouble for saying all of this, but I really don't care because it's the truth.
Sorry, Pam, you were going to say something?
And now I don't know how much money is left. I think very little.
So some money was handed over to the militia?
No, none of it was.
No money at all?
No. According to Vera, she's given money to this one and that one and this one and that one.
So Debbie,
for going to rescue us and for other excuses.
Why did they decide to let you go if they didn't? What was the?
Okay, there's something. That's the one thing when we were debriefed I was not allowed to speak about.
Okay.
But we were rescued by the Italian government working together with the Somali transitional government at the time.
Okay, so the
and
money.
South Africa didn't help us at all. They weren't interested.
And money wasn't handed over?
No.
So what Vera raised, you believe she kept?
No, I don't know. I can't say that.
Yes.
All I'm saying is what she told me.
Mm.
And it's caused problems from the beginning because she also said in the beginning that she would help Bruno and me out with our expenses for the first 3 months till we got back on our feet. But that's not enough time. And even then, she only gave me my first month's expenses. After that, there was one excuse after another. She's never paid my expenses, but she's up until now, she has paid Bruno's expenses. He's getting his yacht fixed up. I don't even have a home. I didn't even have a mattress. She refused. She said none of that constitutes rehabilitation, and that's it. So now, at the moment, I'm walking away from the whole world. I'm going to a spiritual retreat, and I'm building myself up from the beginning with a good, strong foundation without any money. I don't need any of that. I'll be able to, I can see a vision. And in 6 months' time, I'll come back and speak to Niki again. He'll understand.
Okay, so we'll put it into perspective. But Debbie, tell me how your book. You wrote your book pretty quickly after the experience. You've just announced. First time that you were with another Frenchman and that he was then killed. So a whole lot of things are coming out that never came out before.
I know.
How was your book received by the South African public?
Well, you see, remember I said Vera, there was problems.
Mm-hmm.
My brother told her that she was under investigation, and that very weekend of my book launch, I was arrested. Okay, and they wouldn't test me for anything. I wasn't on any drugs, nothing like that. No one would test me. I know it was a setup. And the very next Tuesday, after that weekend of my book launch, when I was sitting in jail, the U magazine came out with all derogatory statements from Vera and her sisters against me with drugs and all kinds of things. So my the book launch failed, and people weren't interested. And even now, people aren't interested in me doing talks. It doesn't matter to me. I know the truth inside. I know who I am. And I don't need anybody to believe me or anything like that. The proof will come out in time. I believe in the truth. That's it.
Well, I think the facts speak for themselves, and there's no question about what you went through and how you came out of it.
But people are people, and they are also people. And you must remember, they've been in Somalia. I think Somalia is a training ground for terrorists, and these people don't know themselves. So many of them are orphans, and they get trained from school how to be militia, but they are people just like us.
So really, Debbie, from being held captive for 20 months, your life risked, the inhumane treatment, the indignity, the fear, the starvation, everything that went with it. You came out, you had been freed, only to step into yet another hell, another world of lies, deceit, rejection, and again, your character and the dehumanizing of who you are.
I wanted so much to go publicly and defend myself against Vera. But I thought, I've already gone through so much karma, and I don't want to build up any more karma. Rather just leave it. But the thing is, it's been going on and on and on, even up until now. And I'm really getting enough of it now. I just want to get on with my life. I need a place, and that's all, just to get on with my life. I can't be with Bruno anymore because of what happened. I just can't trust him or anyone anymore.
Pam, how does one, I mean, you're listening to Debbie's situation, the trauma. We spoke about the post-traumatic stress disorder, the way she was able to handle things. And I suppose their coping mechanisms, because you're having to deal with these things on a daily basis, it is survival. And now you return to normal life. And there's so many rejections on many, many levels. We've spoken to some people who've had experiences, and they've become speakers, and they've written books, and they're lauded, and they're given the time of day and are able to make money. And really, I mean, Debbie's come up against a lot of criticism, and there's been this ongoing battle with Bruno's sister, which has tainted the whole story and the perception around Debbie. How does Debbie, with the coping skills that she has developed, those experiences, how does she deal with it? I mean, you're listening to what she's saying now.
I'd love to know that.
Yeah. Well, I must say, I'm very sad to hear that you have had to cope with this additional trauma, Debbie. And I think that it's about the coping skills that you need. It's about empowerment and connection, because what trauma leads to is disempowerment and disconnection. And in many, many ways, after your trauma in Somalia, you have certainly done that. And I think that what remains now is definitely reconnection, and it sounds like you've certainly reconnected with your kids.
Yes, that's all.
Okay.
With my children.
So that's your
and
children.
That's all I need. That's all I feel I need in my life.
So you've reconnected
and to help people.
Yeah.
I really want to help people. And with what I'll be doing now when I go away for those 6 months will be a preparation to help many, many people.
So you've reconnected with very significant people in your life who are your kids, and also you're reconnecting with a higher purpose. Yes, and your purpose is to help other people.
Yes.
So those are two very, very important things. And there's one other thing in that I think would still come into it now, and that is empowerment. So how do you empower yourself?
How?
Well, I think, writing the book was a fantastic idea. That's one of them. And then it's going to just be about really, really thinking through your options and thinking about how do you, in this situation with Vera and Bruno, what do you do? How much do you let go of, and how much do you fight for, and how do you empower yourself? Because I think that that you've certainly got the reconnection, you've integrated the trauma into your life story, but how do you still empower yourself?
Pam, can I ask you something?
Sure.
I've only just recently, say in the last week or so, actually said goodbye fully to Bruno. Up until then, we've been communicating by phone. I still loved him and cared very much about him, and still do, but I've just decided to let go and just to change my whole life thinking that's all in my past and start new again with what I'll be doing now.
Right.
Do you think that's the best thing to do?
It's such an individual choice, and it's so that I think what you've come to is you can't have a relationship with him. You can't be together in a relationship. No. Okay. And then the question is, the contact that you were having with him, is that more hurtful or helpful? And I think that's
many times we've just fought because he's never once apologized. He's never once said he will ever stand up for me. Yeah. Even in Somalia, he never. Believe it or not. I know I'm a woman, and you might think that I'm boasting or something. I'm not. I just managed to build Bruno up a lot while we were there, because Bruno's never had a difficult life. Because of my difficult life, I built up other strengths, which I thought I could help him with, but he wanted his sleep.
Okay.
And that's just the way it was. I don't blame him. That's the way
he coped with it. He coped with it in his own way, and you coped with it,
exactly.
in your own way.
Yeah.
But I think that what you wanted from him then and what you want from him now is you want him to stand up for you.
And he never will.
Yeah.
No. So there's no point in it to me anymore. That's when I use my mind and not my heart. And I think, okay, logically, he will never stand up for me. So what's the point of being with him?
Yeah.
I'd rather be alone.
And having that contact with him is hurtful.
Yes, it hurts too much.
Okay.
More than it helps.
Yeah, and look, that's a loss. That's another loss.
Yeah. But that's life.
Is that how you're moving forward, Debbie?
Yes, I am. At long last, in fact, I was already there. I came back just for this interview today, and I'll be going back again, away from all people, the world, no electricity, nothing, back to nature, the way I love.
Wow. Well, let's take a break, and then you can maybe tell us a little bit more. It sounds like bliss, but it sounds like quite a radical change and quite a radical move. So almost as if yet another shake-up in your life, Debbie, another way of, I suppose, looking at things. Let's take a break, Debbie. Please do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is S.V. Prinsloo, and I'm the HOD of IT Integration at Bridwin Preparatory School in Melrose. We started using study apps about 6 months ago and have seen astonishing results. We were quite amazed to see how quickly the kids have been able to use study apps and the benefits it has shown with regards to reinforcing what they've already learned inside the classroom. I would highly recommend study apps for any school.
Studyapps.co.za. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. My name's Niki Seberini, and this is Conversations with Niki. We're having a very interesting conversation with Debbie Calitz, and Debbie Calitz and her partner Bruno Pilitzari were on the news for many, many months. I remember when the story broke about 2 South Africans who had been captured by Somalian pirates, and the story came and then went and then came and then went, and then thank God they were released 20 months later. And Debbie Calitz has written a book, and it's called 20 Months in Hostage Hell. And she shares her story and the inner workings of her mind, her emotions, the way she dealt with the brutalizing, the dehumanizing, all of these experiences and challenges that she had to face in those 20 months. And well, it's now a period of time after that. As I said, Debbie's written the book. There have been controversial things happening. Debbie was arrested for supposed drug usage. She has been talking about her relationship with her ex-partner Bruno's sister, the funds that were raised. So it's a story that is continuing. I also have Pam Zeman in the studio, who is a psychologist and who has been adding wonderful insights throughout this conversation. And also, again, a reminder, if you have been listening and then having to do other things, this show is going to be podcast, this and all the other shows. So please do visit the website www.conversationswithniki.co.za, and Conversations with Niki is one word. N-I-K-I is how you spell Niki. So Debbie, your tone of voice, the experiences that you've had, I would say that you sound pretty disappointed with the world at the moment. Am I off the mark completely?
No, you're not. It's not actually the world, it's the mindset of people, of the whole world, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I've just seen life can be differently. And funny enough, in Somalia, because you've got no other stimulation, you have to use your mind a lot. And I went through all kinds of businesses, and if I had all the money in the world, what would I do where I would be happy? And in my mind, I pictured this community place, growing organic vegetables, and this is what is becoming a reality. It's like what I dreamed about there is happening now. This is what will be happening in the future, but that's all I can say because I'm right at the beginning stages of it. But I can see it all in my mind the way I saw it there. And this is what's happening. It shows me that the human mind is that the human person, the being, the light behind the body is so powerful. We just have to learn how to use it. We've been taught all wrong in schools, the way we've been brought up. It's not right. And luckily, I found another way because I was purged of everything, and I had to restart all over again.
So are those the gems, are those the gains of the experience that you had, that you're able to see the world so differently now?
Definitely. I thought it was the world that changed when I came out of there, but it was me that had changed, and because of that I see everything differently.
So you have this exciting new venture ahead, and you're going to be disappearing from the world for 6 months. How do your children feel about the fact that their mom is going to be literally going off the grid once again?
There again, in Somalia, I had a feeling that I would be with my children for about a year, and then they would do their own thing. And my one daughter now has just left to go to Thailand. My son has moved in with the mother of his child, and they are happy, and everybody's happy now. Now it's time for me to do my thing. And when I've got that, there will always be a place for my children in my life, always. And my whole life will change. I know it, I feel it, it's already happening.
When you wake up in the morning, Debbie, what crosses your mind when you get out of bed?
It's so wonderful to be alive, to feel the sunshine, to be able to smell the plants and walk barefoot on the ground and feel the energy of the earth. It's just and beautiful to look at the stars at night and the moon. I missed all those things, and I will never again take them for granted. Never.
Yeah, so I think that it's a very good lesson for all of us to hear that if we learn gratitude, to be thankful for the things we've got.
Yes.
And also to live in the moment, so you actually are able to appreciate the sun on your back, to appreciate the glass of water that you drink.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just really live in the moment.
If everybody could do that, if you get into a negative frame of mind, say to yourself, I have the right not to be negative, because by doing that, you don't pressure your mind in any way, nothing. And then by doing that, you can start looking at the positive things, simple things, like be grateful, first of all, for exactly think of something that you can be grateful for. And it just starts from there, and then it can snowball. And you get out of your negativity. For every one negative, there are 5 positives. A very good teacher taught me that.
Did you have these beliefs before your experience?
Did I have?
These beliefs, this way of looking at the world?
In a way, yes.
Before? Okay.
Yes, I did, but I've never had to put it into practice like I did in Somalia.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking, we all throw these cliches around of, let's be grateful and let's live in the moment, and we never know how long we're here for, and they just fall out the mouth so easily. Yes, but I just wonder how many of us actually truly believe it and feel it, and why it is that we have to have life-threatening experiences, these huge challenges, to really shake us up and jolt us into truly experiencing the present moment and truly enjoying those things that we have. Pam, what is that about human nature where we just go back to expecting and not always just being grateful for what we have?
I think we do tend to take everything for granted. We tend to take things for granted, but we can, at times, train ourselves to be different and train ourselves to have a different way of thinking.
Listen, I think it's a fascinating discussion, and Debbie, I think that so many of the listeners have gained bits, pearls, gems along the way. It's a shocking story for someone to endure what you endured, what Bruna has endured, and what is so saddening is that it's continued after the horrific experience. But you sound strong, Debbie, and I thank you so very much for sharing your story of overcoming these challenges in your life with Pam, with myself, and with our listeners.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me again on your station.
Thank you, Debbie, and take care, and we'll chat after your 6-month venture.
Yes. I've got lots to tell you then. You'll
Looking
see
forward.
why.
Looking
then.
forward.
Wish you
All
all the
good.
best. Wish you all the best for it, Debbie.
Thank
All
you
the
so
very
much.
best,
Thank you,
Debbie.
Pam.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Pam, perhaps we can just carry on talking just for a couple of minutes about that, because as I said, what I find so disconcerting about this is because I spoke to Debbie just after she had written a book, just after she had been arrested, and we didn't delve into all of that. We really just spoke about the story and the experience. So, she spoke about abuse before this. The hostage drama, then this literally the 20 months of hell, and then coming out and just another hell, and yet she seems so upbeat. Do you think she really, truly, intrinsically feels that way, or she's just telling herself that this is just part of survival?
I think that it's both. I think she's definitely sad that her relationship with Bruno hasn't worked out, and I think that she feels, very misled and very unhappy by what's happened with Vera and what's happened with the money. There's no doubt about that. She's sad about that. I mean, I think that came through quite clearly. But I think that she's using what she knows, and she's using the coping skills and the resources she has to try and create another identity for herself and find another place for herself. But I must say, I was very saddened to hear that after she'd been through and survived such a tragic event and such harsh circumstances, that she has to go through this again is really very saddening.
I think yet another lesson we can all extract from this is that we mustn't be so quick to judge, and we mustn't be so quick to throw stones. How many people read reports of an arrest, the problem in certain magazines around the trust.
Sure. Yeah.
And, we must be very careful how we judge and how we see and how we perceive situations.
There really are three sides to every story. My side, your side, and the truth.
The truth, absolutely. Pam, wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you, Niki.
And thank you for sharing your expertise. Lovely
Thank
having you. Looking forward to having you on again.
Next time.
I hope that you have enjoyed the show, and I hope that you have gained as much as I have. And really, that is what Conversations with Niki is all about. It's about your story and my story, and let's learn and let's grow. And incidentally, if you have any interesting stories that you would like to share, if perhaps you think listeners would gain from your experiences, why don't you contact me? Send me an email, Niki@NikiSeberini.com. And just a reminder that Niki is spelled Niki. Podcasts, go to the website www.conversationswithniki.co.za, and you can also follow me on Twitter. I really, really have had a fantastic time. Statistics show that if students do not review what they have learnt, they'll forget 70% within an hour. This is pretty frightening. And 84% within 48 hours. So the key to effective long-term learning is testing. Do you need more proof that Study Apps is the market leader in revision and test preparation? Study smarter, not harder with Study Apps. And why don't you go along to that website and learn more? And that is www.studyapps.co.za. And of course, Conversations with Niki was brought to you by studyapps.co.za. From me, Niki Seberini, until next week, have a fabulous one. Goodbye. Conversations with Niki was brought to you by studyapps.co.za, South Africa's leading education app for tablets.